Antman and the Wasp Quantumania is the 31st MCU movie now playing in theaters. When Scott Lang and his family get stuck down in the quantum realm, they discover an entirely new micro-universe, as well as cross paths with the newest MCU baddie, Kang the Conqueror, with notorious schemes that Ant-Man and the Wasp must stop. Alright, so if you're in the geek sphere and you're a fanatic of the MCU, you've been following it for years, then you know that we have entered into the divisive years of the MCU, as the critics are split on Ant-Man Quantumania, giving it a 47% on Rotten Tomatoes. Let's talk about the negatives first for this movie, kind of seeing what the critics might be getting at. First of all, this movie is taking a lot on itself. It's introducing Kang, it's explaining the multiverse, it's setting up where we're going in Phase 5. There's a lot of weight put on this movie, and I'm not gonna lie when I tell you that you can feel it when you watch the movie. The Ant-Man movies have always been pretty small-scaled, pretty personal stories within the MCU. But with this one, Peyton Reed wanted to take on an Avengers-level movie. And while this movie wants to feel epic, like it has this big, gigantic scale, it still feels kind of small in comparison to the other MCU movies, that what it's trying to accomplish, it doesn't always hit. While they are setting up some incredibly high stakes, especially with Kang the Conqueror and what that could mean going forward in the MCU, the stakes aren't always felt as high and as intensely as I think the filmmakers and Marvel want you to feel them. And because this movie is trying to be a conclusion to Ant-Man while setting up Phase 5, while introducing Kang, there is a lot of exposition in this movie. There are definitely times where this movie slows down to explain not just what's happening within the movie, but what they're setting up for further installments in this universe. But with all of that said, I still had a really good time with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. First of all, as an Ant-Man movie, I felt like this fit in the series pretty well. Both Ant-Man movies have been building up the quantum realm, talking about it, getting closer and closer to showing us what it could be, with Ant-Man and the Wasp being the closest we ever got to being in the quantum realm when we saved Janet. But now we are diving full head first into the quantum realm. We are there for pretty much the whole movie, and I really enjoyed the time that we spent in the quantum realm. The Marvel movies have always been subgenres, movies within movies, and this movie within the MCU is a science fiction B-movie from like the 50s or 60s. Which obviously means this is not going to hit for everybody, but for me, I found this movie very imaginative, very creative, very inventive. The character designs, the design of the quantum realm itself, it's clear that Peyton Reed and Marvel put a lot of work and time and energy into designing this place, fleshing it out, filling it out, and I thought it looked mesmerizing. It was a lot of fun to explore. I really enjoyed what they did with the quantum realm in this movie. With the Ant-Man characters, the theme of family is still at the core of this movie, and I think that's what really makes it feel consistent to the rest of the series. Cassie, as we know from Endgame, has now grown up 5 more years. She's played by Kathryn Newton, so her relationship with Scott has changed pretty dramatically. And the Cassie and Scott relationship is some of my favorite stuff in the Ant-Man series, so I was worried that that was going to be messed with now that we have this new actor and aging her up. But I still think that it worked very well. I do think that the character journey of Cassie with Scott wasn't fully complete, or at least it was kind of forcefully completed by the end of the film. I don't feel like they hit that perfectly. But as far as the chemistry and the parental relationship went, I still thought it worked pretty well for the movie. But the one thing that this movie had to do, at least in my opinion, was introduce us and make us feel the threat of Kang. Especially coming off of Thanos, they needed to sell this guy as a worthy successor to be the next big future baddie in the MCU as a whole. And when it comes to Kang, that is where they succeeded the most with this movie. Jonathan Majors has proven to be a force to be reckoned with in the MCU going forward. He is so commanding on screen. He's imposing. He's threatening. He was a very compelling villain to watch, and they set up his motivation, I felt, very well. His backstory, his origin. I feel like I understand the character of Kang. I understand where he's going. And I'm really looking forward to going on that journey with Kang, with Jonathan Majors in the role. If he can consistently bring the presence to the MCU that he had in this movie, I think we're in for a very good villain going forward. And something very controversial that I've seen online that I want to talk about is Modoc. This character is freaking weird, and I kind of loved it. The way that Modoc is put into this movie, for those of you that are Modoc purists, if there even are any Modoc purists out there, the adaptation that they take with Modoc in this movie is very different from the comics and other iterations of Modoc. But as it is adapted for this movie and for the Ant-Man trilogy as a whole, I thought it worked very well. I dug it. I liked Modoc in this movie. I just did. I thought he was great. Bottom line, guys, with Antman and the Wasp Quantumania, I can totally understand why this doesn't work for some people, because this movie is weird. It dives headfirst completely 100% into the science fiction realm. It totally feels like a sci-fi B movie, which obviously is not going to be for anyone, but I totally dug it. I bought into it. I had fun with the quantum realm. I had fun with the creatures. I had fun with the story. The characters from the Antman series are still there. The humor is still intact for the most part. Definitely the least amount of humor, I thought, in the Antman series thus far. But I feel like the jokes that they inserted into this movie, for the most part, hit every time. It's definitely an interesting way to kick off Phase 5. It's a very bold step. Marvel is starting to get so fantastical and so out there that I do think they're going to start losing some casual viewers. But for me, who's a hardcore Marvel fan, who's been with this universe since it was conceived back in 2008, is that weird to say? I had a good time with Antman and the Wasp Quantumania. It's probably my second favorite in the Antman series, and I'm going to give it a solid recommend. But it is definitely a movie that I can see why it's kind of split between the critics. I can see some people not getting on board with this one. My wife, for example, was not a fan of this movie. She was not really into it whatsoever, but I dug it. So it's going to be interesting to see where the opinion lands on this one as time goes on down the line. But anyway, guys, those were my thoughts on Antman and the Wasp Quantumania. What are your guys' thoughts on the movie? Comment down below. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions. I'd love to hear them. Guys, if you're new here, why don't you go on, consider hitting that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 2,500 subscribers by the end of the year. If you like talking about movies, we do that on here a lot. So why don't you consider joining us? On your way out, why don't you hit the like button? It helps us out a lot as well. And I hope to talk to you guys again real soon.